Hi, and welcome to You've Got This podcast with Kat and Von. We're two qualified mental health professionals passionate about supporting expats in Dubai. No matter if you've just arrived or you've been here for years, whether you're single, married, or a parent, we understand the unique challenges of expat life. Our podcast will help you navigate these challenges by offering real, relatable conversations about mental health and well-being. Sometimes funny, but always real. We'll share tips, expert insights, and personal stories to remind you what you're experiencing isn't a sign of weakness. It's a part of being human, and you've got this. Let's dive into today's topic.
Hello, Kat.
Hey, Von.
How you going?
Really good. How are you?
Good. So I've got an interesting one today. I wanted to talk a little bit about habits and dependencies and addictions. Now, there's only so much we can cover, and we'll go, into detail in a few other podcasts. But I wanted to sort of give a snippet of this, sort of in its whatever entirety. Just because I see so much of it in my work. And I work with so many clients in terms of, them trying to get rid of a habit or an unhealthy sort of dependency or whatnot. And I do find that clinical hypnotherapy is probably one of the best ways. There's a lot of research out there. You just have to sort of, go to Google Scholar and find it, that it does help reframe your thinking about a habit or a dependency. So the one that I'm going to talk about today is, I suppose it kind of just relates to so many people more than a few others. But when we talk about habits and dependencies, I'm talking about addictions like smoking, vaping. It can be alcohol use. It can be weight issues. So, chocolate. You can say chocolate is a bad habit or a dependency.
Guilty.
Yeah. And just talking through what kind of keeps us in that problem space of keeping a habit. And would you say, Kat, I've got a question for you, that a habit is a sort of or addiction and dependency, would you say that they're sort of interchangeable terms?
Addiction and dependency? I've never really thought that through, actually.
So it's interesting because, a lot of clients that come in will say to me, I'm just addicted to smoking or vaping or whatever it is. And I always turn it back on them and I say, are you addicted or are you dependent on it? And the distinction there sometimes, they're helped to find the distinction when I ask them, okay, so when you're asleep, the 8-7 hours that you're sleeping, do you have to get up and light a cigarette or vape? Because that, I think, is a real difference. If you're addicted to something, chocolate, you're getting up, going down to the fridge at 3 a.m. because you need it.
I've done that.
You have not.
I have.
So you've woken up and had a thought.
100%. I did wake up and have a thought. I do that regularly. Is that a problem? I'm just realizing now.
No. Well, it's the unhelpful thinking patterns that keep us stuck in the problem space. And then there are a few, and maybe some of our listeners can see some of these problem unhelpful thinking patterns in themselves. And like I said in the beginning, I'm not going to do all of them because there's just too many to go through. But some of them include sorry, let me reframe myself. The global thinking unhelpful pattern about a habit or your habit or smoking. Let's just use smoking. So, for example, phrases like, I'll never be able to give up.
Yeah.
I need a cigarette every 20 minutes. I've got an addictive personality.
Yeah.
If you find yourself saying things like that about your problem space of smoking or vaping, it is so much harder to remove yourself from that. And I always get clients to start thinking about the way that they do their bad habit, okay, and what their unhelpful thinking patterns are about that particular habit. So that's one, that global thinking side.
You know what's one I hear a lot? I need it to relax.
Ah.
Because then they've partnered it with something very pleasurable.
So I say to them, can you show me on the packet of cigarettes or the vape packet where it says helps you to relax? Because I don't think any packet of cigarettes, in fact, nicotine is not a relaxant.
It's a stimulant.
It gets you more hyper than relaxed. So that's cannot. I think what it does is when you think or when you watch someone take a cigarette, you'll see them breathing deep.
Yeah.
And more often than not, they're sort of looking up.
Yeah.
And the way that you do your habit is so, so important to take note of. So another one of another important sort of cognitive distortion is what emotional discomfort are you using your habit so you can tolerate, if that makes sense. So most people who have a habit of smoking or whatnot have a low tolerance of discomfort. They're using the vaping or the smoking to avoid some worry or stress or anger or whatever it is in their life. For some, it's just boredom. Yes, absolutely. For some, it's just boredom.
Can I add to that? Like,
yes, tell me.
You know, I call it buffering, right? Like when you don't want to feel a feeling, boredom, discomfort, you know, any sort of resistance to a feeling. I call it buffering. You know, it's just vaping or drinking or, you know, any other destructive avoidant sort of behavior, and it's just a resistance to feeling what is.
Exactly, and it's and what's being avoided can be sometimes very, very subtle that you don't even notice it. But if you, just before you go and vape and smoke, if you just sit, you just take a moment before you light up or before you take the first vape, if you just take a moment to sit or work out what is it exactly, what is your emotional frame right then and there, just as you're about to, because it's such a when you have a habit, you do it in a way that you're not even thinking that you're doing it, right? When you go to the fridge to open find the chocolate, whatever, you're not thinking that you're doing that. There's no steps that you're recounting. But if you find yourself doing it and you're able to step back, write down some of the things that so for some it's boredom. For some it's an emotional, I'm angry. Or for some it is pure habit of, well, it's with the coffee. Or it's with the glass of wine.
Yeah.
And once you work that out, you can have a much easier time to understand of when you can stop yourself as well. So another sort of thing about dependency, it's yes, as I was saying, it's all about avoiding something. But also it's a self-soothing ritual. Like any type of bad habits like biting your nails or twirling your hair or picking your skin, they're habits to self-soothe you.
Yeah.
It allows you to be in a thought of nothing.
Yeah.
Right? It moves you away from what got you there, that emotional frame that got you there. So some of the other unhelpful patterns of thinking about sort of dependencies are a sort of, if you run a stable attribution style, and sort of what that means is that you have this belief that you cannot change. I'm never going to change. You know, it's that saying, I drink because my father was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
I don't drink because my father was an alcoholic. You know, like which one do you run by? You know, you identify yourself, you know, with your habit, and you make sort of your your problem unchangeable. And I think, it's that narrative. I'm a smoker. I'm a drinker, or whatever it is,
Do you work with narratives? Like, do you reprogram them with a different story?
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
because I've heard you do some of those. They're fabulous.
well, so just to give our listeners just like, something to ponder. One of the things that we do is, for starters, what I do is, first of all, you need to get in charge of the emotional state that you're in, or whatever anxiety it is that you're running. Otherwise, giving up whatever you're trying to give up is not going to be successful. I mean, that's the sort of the be all end all. Trying to understand sort of why you smoke, as I was explaining earlier, and also what you tell yourself about why you smoke. So it's a lot of uncovering. It's like a journey to stop doing something is also to understand not just why you're doing it, but how, exactly how you're doing it. So some of the things that, I say for smokers is, when is smoking a problem for you, and when is it not a problem?
That's interesting.
So look, when do I want to smoke, and when do I not want to smoke? And understand the distinction between those two areas. And again, the whole 360, what's my emotional frame, when it is a problem, when it isn't a problem.
What's interesting about that, Von, is like, it's still the same person, right?
Yeah.
Like, there are times where they are a smoker because they're literally smoking. And there are times in their day where they are not actively smoking, and in that moment are not a smoker. And they're the same person.
They're the same person.
I think that's exciting.
So what's even more interesting is, I say to, a lot of my clients is, have you ever watched yourself in a mirror smoke? Sometimes that's all it takes for a client to have an aha moment, where I've said to them, your homework is to go, put your kids to sleep, or whatever you've got to do, find some alone time, grab a mirror, whether it's in the bathroom, wherever it is, and vape or smoke, and look at yourself. I have clients that have come in and said, I had to stub it out. That is the first time that I've lit a cigarette in the 10 years or whatever it was. That was what it took, the way that I looked.
But do you know what is so key with what you just said? Is when we have a behavior that we want to change, okay, we imagine it's going to be hard, it's going to be long, it's going to take so much effort. And yet, when you can be provoked into having an insight, an insight means that you can change instantly, no effort, effortless.
Yes.
And that excites me so much.
Absolutely. And you can definitely change any habit and dependency. Yes, it starts with, you have to be ready. I like, it's my number one question. Can you help me lose weight?
Yeah.
Again, yes.
Yeah.
Do you want to?
Yeah.
Are you ready to do the work?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not just about the diet and the exercise.
We all know how to do that. It's just how to get myself to want to do that.
Correct. It's that intrinsic motivation.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's stopping me from doing it? Exactly. Like just getting into the nitty gritty of it and having that conversation.
But that's what I love about the work that you do, is that you can provoke in them almost, and I don't instant change, effortless change, because you've activated a higher level of thinking about that issue. You've triggered something in them that makes their success inevitable. Because it's not do this and then do this and then do this and then that's we know how to do that.
But it is, at the end of the day, it's also changing the grooves in our brains of how we are always doing something. And a habit is called a habit for a reason. It is because we're always doing it the exact same way. So when I ask a client to go, just look yourself in the mirror and of how you smoke, it automatically gets your brain to, well, this is different.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
differently. What is
What's this?
this?
Who's that person in the mirror?
Same with smoking with your opposite hand.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Sometimes I get clients, I say just every third cigarette or every third time you reach for your vape or whatever it is, don't smoke with your right hand, smoke with your left hand.
Yeah.
Just actively make sure it's with the other hand.
Yeah.
And them just doing that, I have had clients say to me, I have picked it up less than I thought I would. Because it's difficult, it's uncomfortable to smoke. So I just go, I'm going to smoke it so I won't. So and if I can get someone to smoke one less cigarette or have 10 less puffs of a vape, job done. That's those small incremental steps, slow and steady, are what get you through stopping a habit.
And what's really cool is and it all comes full circle, and that is that your identity as a smoker, as someone that overdrinks, as someone that overeats, that identity is self-constructed. There is no, there's no picture of you in a dictionary that says you must be this. This is thought constructed reality, okay?
Yes.
This is your construction of your own personality, of who you are and what you like and what you don't like. The second I had that insight about myself, the stories that I would tell, oh, I'm always late. What a pointless story. Who said that? I'm always late. I'm not always late.
No, you're not.
I'm not. Sometimes I'm not. So rescripting the narrative of your identity, your personality
or
is
your
also
habit.
of your habit, of who you are, is also within your control and can be dropped in an instant. We think our personalities are so fixed and so final and so, closed book. It's not. It's evolving. You're changing all the time. You may not realize that. You're changing intentionally and unintentionally all the time. Nothing is static. Everything is constantly changing, evolving, so to have a concept of yourself that is limited, that I am a smoker, if you don't want to be a smoker. If you want to be a smoker, smoke away. But, if you don't want that, then that's okay. You're not that.
No, exactly. So if I'm to give, obviously this is habits, dependencies, addictions are so close to my heart because I really love working with clients in this area. And if I was just to wrap up and give, any advice to anyone that's struggling with smoking and vaping, is just to sort of try to do some mental imagery of what would it be like when you're smoke free. Again, how will that be? How will that look once you give up? How will you look?
How will that feel? How will that smell?
How will your partner react?
Yeah.
How will your kids react? How will your friends react? Your boyfriends, your girlfriends, whatever it is. And to also have a think about what is it that the smoking does for you that you can't do for yourself.
Ooh.
Yes.
That's good. That's seriously good.
And that should...
Oh, that's so big. Yeah. Underline.
Right?
Highlight.
What is it?
Exclamation mark.
What is it that glass of wine...
Yeah.
When you get home... I know that's a big one for everyone. That glass of wine when you get home from work, what does it do for you that you can't do for yourself? And I'll onus on the listeners for this one. We'll do loads more podcasts about this area, but have a think once you've worked out the emotional frame and where you are when you're getting that glass of wine. What could you do that kind of would mimic the same so-called relief or whatever it is you think you're getting?
Can I add to that?
Absolutely, please.
I almost want to just end with that because it's such a
no.
drop the mic moment. It really is that hit home. But for me, okay, overeating, having a glass of wine, all of those things were an attempt for me not to feel what's there. And so when I just said to myself, Kat, you're not going to eat your feelings, you're going to feel your feelings.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
Yes.
That's what it took. That's what it was.
Right?
Yeah. So now I eat when I want to eat because I'm supposed to eat at that time or I want to eat at that time or whatever.
Yes.
But the drama of should I have this and can I have this and I'm going to go to the fridge at 3 a.m. and I'm going to, that just got eliminated because I was just like, is this because you want to eat or is this because you want to eat because you don't want to feel? you know. And so
Yes.
the alternative is like self-soothing or self-regulation is the ability to just feel what's there and not need to do anything about it.
Exactly. And if you're bored, that's an easy one. Go for a walk.
Or just sit with boredom.
Yes.
Boredom can be felt.
And grounding.
Felt till it finished.
It's healthy
Feel
to be
the
bored.
boredom through.
Yes.
Feel the boredom through. I wanted to make a t-shirt that said, I feel my feelings, not eat them, or I feel my feelings and not vape them. I feel my feelings and insert whatever.
We'll have to get
whatever.
some merch.
You know, that it really is fundamental, you know.
Absolutely. And for anyone dealing with that, you know what? Like what we're about, you've got this.
You've got this.
You can get a handle on it. And we're here to help. And I'm super excited to do a lot more podcasts on that.
Thank you so much, Vaughn. I love that.
Thank you, Kat. This has been another episode of the You've Got This with Kat and Von podcast. For more information, visit our website at you'vegotthis.ae, where you can find the show notes and many resources to help support you in your well-being. Or follow us at you'vegotthis.ae. We welcome your comments and questions, so please reach out and be part of the conversation. If you want to support our podcast, please share it with people who might benefit from it. We hope you enjoyed this episode and we invite you to join us again. And remember, you've got this.